excited. Okay. All right. We just started recording. I actually super exciting. I have somebody helping me today with the Zoom because we have almost 500 people signed up for study hall. So my friend Kimmy she's letting people in right now. She may be posting in the chat, but she's basically just helping me manage the things that are happening. So if you get a message from her or had a question or something like that, Kimmy, it says FACC team in front of her name. She is helping me, so I'm excited about that. So everyone needs to mute. So if you're not muted, and maybe Kimmy can mute people too. I think she can just mute everyone. But let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to Study Hall. Today is December 4th. 2021. Welcome to free public study hall. I'm so excited to spend time with all of y'all. My favorite thing to do is study hall. I love study hall. We do it for the members of the FAC Hub twice a month. And it's just I'm always energized afterwards, whether it's we usually do it on a weekend day, like around this time, and then during the week in the evening, kind of later, making sure that we can catch those Pacific Coast people. So no matter what time it is, even if the evening one, I'm always like jazzed at the end. They're always they're so valuable. They're so inspiring. And it's one of those things, my mom has this saying that you have to find things that you have to decide if something is going to sap you or zap you. And sapping you takes all of your energy, and zapping you energizes you. And study hall always zaps me. It's always one of those things where I feel zapped and I never feel sapped. So I'm excited to be sharing it publicly with all of the members of the Flight Attendant Career Connection community. So here's what you can expect today in study hall. First, I'm going to tell you a story. Then it's very interesting and it's full of helpful tips that will help you on your flight attendant journey too. So it's not just a story. It's a helpful story. Next, you may have seen in the Facebook group that we did a poll earlier this week asking what topics you would like to see covered in study hall. And so I have the results of the poll, and I took the top 3. And so I'm going to kind of quickly and thoughtfully is the best word. Quickly and thoughtfully address each of those 3 top ones. So it was commuting, how to feel confident in your interview so you don't just freeze up. And then the third one, or the first one, we're gonna do them backwards. The top poll answer was face-to-face tips. So I have tips for the face-to-face, what to wear, how to find out what to expect, how to prepare, how to study. All of that is coming. So we're gonna do the poll results, then open the floor for Q&A. So I will call for Q&A. You can raise your hand using there's a feature on Zoom where you can raise your hand, and I will get to as many of you as possible. Like I said, there was 500 registered, so we may not get to all the questions. If we don't, though, Kimmy, my friend, is helping me. She's going to be collecting the questions that end up like in the chat. So if you don't get called on, you can type it in the chat, and then I can follow up in a YouTube video or follow up on a Facebook Live or something like that. Okay, so that's how the questions are going to work. After the Q&A, we are going to do something that we do every study hall, which is interview practice. This is when you get to really, really, really invest and use this time as an investment in your next step. So I will give everyone the same interview question. You will have a few minutes. Everyone will have a few minutes to think about it, take some notes, and then we will come back together. And in normal study hall, we don't have 500 people. So every single person that's in a place where they can talk, so they're not at work, not driving, not on mute because their kids are nuts. So every single person gets a chance to answer the interview question. And then in front of the group, we listen to each other, learn from each other, and I give everyone feedback. Today, we will have to limit that. depending on where we are in time and how many volunteers we have. You're never required to be on video during study hall. You're never required to talk during study hall. Study hall is for you. And so every time, once you become a member of the hub, you will be invited to study hall. You can always get the replay if you can't make it live, or like I said, if you're driving or you're at work or you're in a place where you can only call in on your phone and just listen, that's awesome. Or you just can be on Zoom, but your camera's off because you already, took off your makeup and your bra and you're done. Like, that's fine too. Study hall is for you. I'm going to plug my computer in so it doesn't die on me. I don't have to think about it again. So excuse the interruption. There we go. All right. All plugged in. So then after interview practice, I'm going to give you a little bit of information. Well, not a little bit, a lot of information. Again, thoughtful information about the FAC Hub, what it is, how you can join, and all the features, study hall and more. That's at the end. So I would love for you to stay with me to the end, because afterwards I may have some time for more Q&A, depending on how quickly it goes. Basically, how much I talk. Or how thorough the questions are. So we may do another Q&A at the end. So if you don't get your question answered at the beginning, or you want to hear the other answers, please stay till the end. One more thing, if you have to leave, I know some people messaged me, I can say 45 minutes, I can, pop in, pop out. That's totally fine. Because you're registered, you will get a copy of the replay. Emailed to you later this afternoon, probably. So, again, study hall's for you. So come, you do as much as you can, and then, then go. All right. So let's get started with the story I would like to tell you. This story is my story. This is a story of how I became a flight attendant. I don't tell this story every single time in study hall. It is a story of triumph and heartbreak, but I think that it is it's good for you to know where I come from and what my journey looked like. And hopefully you'll feel inspired and maybe learn some tips for your journey from my flight attendant journey. So in 2006, I was 24 years old, and I was working at Bank of America. I loved my job. I worked with a bunch of girls my age. We would just I was going to say we would go out, but I feel like that's inappropriate. So we would have we would just have fun together. We were just young, single. I loved my job. I loved my customers. I was customer facing. I was a teller. I got to see lots of different people. I loved the security aspect of working in a bank, which I didn't even know banks had such very specific security policies as they do. I loved learning about the safety of it, about keeping the bank safe, all of that kind of stuff. I really, really loved my job. I had always been interested in being a flight attendant, though. It had always been something just sort of interested in the back of my mind, although I never really looked into it. But one day I was at home. It was a Wednesday, and I happened to be at home because I was working that Saturday, so I had Wednesday off. And I went on the United Airlines website and looked at careers, and they were accepting flight attendant applications. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I clicked on the qualifications. I was like, I wonder what I have to do, where I have to go to school, what kind of degree and certification do I need, right? That's always our first question. So I go to the qualifications to try to get this information. And I started to go through the qualifications, permission to work in the US, over 21 years old, willing to relocate, 2 to 3 years of face-to-face customer service experience, pass a background check, pass a drug test. And I was checking them all off mentally. I was qualified, 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 qualified. No mention of school, barely a mention of college, no certifications required. And I was dang, guess I'm qualified. So boom, boom, boom. I applied. I immediately was given an assessment. This is how they did it then. Immediately given an assessment, did my assessment, yes, I'm a leader. Yes, I love working as a member of a team. Yes, I smile all the time, whatever the personality assessment was. And then I submitted it, screen refreshed, and they invited me to a interview in Dulles the next week. And I had 3 dates to choose from. And I was like, holy cow. It was just like that. Searching the internet, being random. Now I have, an hour later, I have an interview. This was before video interviews. So this was basically that video interview step. Okay. It was done by an outside company, sort of like how HireVue sometimes hosts. Well, HireVue is the software system, but sometimes the airlines hire still outside recruiting companies to go through those video interviews. So this was an outside company. I was invited to Dulles. I did not know the difference between Dulles and Dallas until this moment. Okay. So I was invited to Dulles, which when it said Dulles, obviously I know the word is not Dallas, but I didn't know what it was. So I Googled it. Oh, it's Washington, D.C. I was living in Charleston, South Carolina, living with my parents. I picked a date the next week. I was like, dang, this is amazing. They sent me my flight information. I flew I remember my parents came home and I was like, hey, so guess what? I have a flight attendant interview in Washington, D.C. next week. And they were like, what? But I mean, now looking back, I feel like they must have been super shocked, but also they had known me for 23 years. So maybe they weren't so shocked, but I was shocked to myself. So I get my information, get my flight information, wake up early in the morning, fly up to Dulles. I rode the metro by myself, which was huge for me. It was so cool. It was like 9 in the morning, 8 in the morning. I'm riding it from Dulles down to actually Pennsylvania Avenue was where my interview was. Same street that White House is on. How cool is that? I was such like, even though Charleston's not like a small town, I was definitely like starry-eyed the entire time. I was on the metro, all these commuters, all these people commuting to like all these like fancy jobs. And I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm in Sex in the City. This is amazing. So I go to my interview. I actually got there really early. It was like, because my interview was like at 1 a.m. They flew me out on the first flight out. So probably left at 7:15 a.m. nonstop. I'm there. So I went to the mall, the National Mall. I have a picture that a stranger took of me because this was before the cell phones. So I had a disposable camera. I still have a picture of me standing there, I'm like holding my bag. I'm in my suit and like the Capitol buildings behind me. I guess that's what that is. Standing on the National Mall, had breakfast, went to this fancy building, fancy lobby with like a secretary in the lobby. It was like marble, it was huge, it was shiny, got in a shiny elevator, went way up to this floor, got out into a very regular looking office. It looked like a doctor's office. I signed on this little thing, sat down, they called me in. This super nice lady, amazing recruiter, interviewed me. This was my very first everything. I mean, I had interviewed before. I'd been hired by the bank. I'd been hired. So, it wasn't my first interview period, but, it was my first flight attendant interview, which we all know is like next level. So asked me some questions, went over my resume. I don't remember a ton of the questions. I do remember her being very lovely. And at the end, she said, well, I'd love to invite you to Chicago for the next and final step for a face-to-face at United headquarters. Yes, ma'am. That's amazing. So I was so excited, kept it together. Thank you so much. I'm honored. I can't wait. Yay. Go back down the elevator, go back out onto the street. And I had a Mary Tyler Moore moment. So if you've ever seen the beginning of Mary Tyler Moore, when she spins around and throws her hat in the air, I had no hat, but I literally spun around in the middle of the city street because I was just overwhelmed with joy and just like surprise, basically. So went back on the metro, back to the airport, went home. The next week, I find myself in Chicago. Again, they fly me out to Chicago. This time I have to ride a bus. Not as exciting. Ride a bus from O'Hare to United headquarters. This is United headquarters back before the Continental merger. So we were in Chicago, outside the city. It's not actually headquarters. That was downtown. This was the training center and the office buildings that were outside the city. So I went to where the training center is. We had a full face-to-face interview. very similar to what you experience today. It hasn't changed a ton in the last 15 years. So I had a group activity where I had to complete an activity with a group of applicants. We all sat around and listened to a presentation and learned about training and learned about how they don't pay you and how you get to stay, but they do give you a place to stay. They actually had a stewardess college, basically. That's what it had been when it was built. Stewardess college still there. So they had what they called a hotel. It looked exactly like Marine Corps barracks. Don't ask me how I know what the inside of the Marine Corps barracks looked like, but that's what it looked like on the inside. So that's what it looked like. But anyways, back to my story. We did a face-to-face interview. I did a face-to-face interview with a recruiter. She was not a flight attendant. She was in human resources. That was the very last step. There was a lot of like waiting back in the waiting room, waiting in the cafeteria. Very last part, I was in sort of a cubicle, a temporary cubicle at a desk across from this lady. Again, very lovely. She asked me questions. I do remember there were star format questions. I do remember she asked me what would I do if I had an intoxicated passenger request more alcohol. She asked me if I'd ever what about a time I'd faced an emergency situation. And actually my bank had been robbed. So that's a great story to tell for that. And because that's why I remember telling that story. You don't usually get to tell your bank robbery story. And then at the end, she said, well, thank you so much. I would love to invite you to training and extend an offer of employment. And I looked at her and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. I started to cry and I said, do you realize you just changed my life? You just changed my life. This is amazing. I cannot believe this. Thank you so much. And I literally saw my path and my destiny change course. Like it like split, like it was going one way and it was great. That was a great place. And it literally shifted to another direction in that moment. And I was on my way to training. 2 weeks later, I found myself on May 1st, my first day of training in Chicago for United Airlines. I had applied the middle of March. So this was 6 weeks later. It went super quick. I had no idea what was going on, honestly. I feel very lucky, super lucky that that's how it worked out the first time. I went through training, 6.5 weeks of training. It sleeted while I was there. I started May 1st, so you can do the math. That was insane. It was so cold. I did training. I learned how to evacuate all different types of airplanes, including the 747, which is really cool. I learned how to do CPR. Well, I knew how to do CPR. I learned how to fight a fire. I didn't know how to do that. I learned how to use the AED to shock someone's heart back to life. I didn't know how to do that. I also learned how to deliver a baby. One day my mom called that afternoon and I called her. We did have cell phones. They just weren't like, phone pictures and stuff. I called her. She said, what'd you learn today? I said, oh, today we learned how to deliver a baby. She said, wow, takes most people 9 years to learn how to deliver a baby. That's amazing. I said, yes, well, I learned it today. Then I graduated. It was, they played the song. It's just like every United graduation that you can watch on YouTube from the 70s. They play the song, you walk down 2 by 2, they give you the wings. I got on the plane and went home. And then I was based in Dulles, my newly discovered airport that I had never even heard of before. So I'm based in Dulles. And I got a crash pad with a bunch of people from training. We rented a house together, started working. My very first trip was to Frankfurt, Germany. We came back, we were on the 747. How cool is that? My next trip was again to Frankfurt. This is on reserve, just getting called off reserve, worked Frankfurt again. Then the next trip that I had was, this is when the story takes a turn. So I was on call, and at United at the time, they had 2 types of reserve. One type of reserve was just on-call reserve. You went on reserve at midnight, and you just stayed on reserve until your reserve block was over, and they could call you 24 hours a day. The other type of reserve that they had at the time was, I don't remember what it was called. It was like call-out reserve or call-in reserve or something. So after 7 o'clock p.m., I believe it was 7 o'clock p.m., the night before you start reserve, you call and you listen to a recording in Unimatic, which was like the system, you put all these codes in and you listen to a recording that gives you your assignment for the next day. They either give you a trip or they release you to a day off. That was your options. So sometimes though, because they're a crew scheduler is literally like recording, you have this pairing, blah, 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 like they're literally putting the information in. So sometimes your assignment would be in there before 7 because they've got to get everything done by 7. And so you could call and listen in and get your assignment for the next day, usually before 7. I called I know the times, at 6:42. I called at 6:42. I had a trip. So this was my third trip, right? So I'm in my like second block of reserve days, I believe. I've gone to Frankfurt twice. And now I've got, I call in and I get my trip. I got a trip. I was based in Dulles, but we were also on call for DCA and Baltimore. So of course, United's hub is Dulles. So that's the most of the trips. But this trip I had gotten was actually out of Baltimore, which was about 2 hours away from where I lived, which was close to Dulles. So I say I got a crash pad, but I actually I moved, took my car, took my stuff and lived in a big house with a bunch of other flight attendants. So I got in my car. So I got my trip, had a trip out of Baltimore. I'd never been to Baltimore, third trip. I had a very early show time. It was like 5:45 or 6 in the morning, very early. And this was 6:45 at night. So I went ahead and made sure my bag was packed, pulled up my directions. This was back when we had like print the MapQuest and stuff, had my little MapQuest printed directions, had all of my stuff ready to go and went to bed. The next day I woke up and I drove the 2.5 hours to Baltimore. I parked, I went inside, I went all the way in, I went through security, I went down to the crew room so that I could get on the computer and pull up my trip and print out my pairing, print out my trip schedule. When I did that and I logged in and my trip pulled up, it looked funny. It didn't look what I was expecting it to look like. And I wasn't really sure what was weird about it because again, this was my third trip. So there was a flight attendant next to me and I said, can you tell me, does this look like I check in at 7? Because it was like 6 in the morning. And I thought that's when my showtime was. She was like, yeah, but that trip starts in Dulles. Why are you here? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So I picked up the phone. There's this bat phone. They call it a bat phone. It goes straight to crew scheduling. It was sitting right there next to my computer. Picked it up. It connects straight to crew scheduling. Hello. Hi, this flight attendant Abby Sumner, blah, 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 blah. This is my number, da, 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 da. I'm looking at my trip. I thought I had a trip out of Baltimore. They were like, oh, we had a really last minute sick call. So we changed your trip at 6:49. What time did you call and listen to your recording? And I was like, well, it must have been before that. I was like, what do I do? And he said, well, I guess you got to get to Dulles. There's nothing like if you make it the flight, then there's nothing we can do. But I mean, otherwise your trip's out of Dulles. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So hang up. There I go. So I freak out. The flight attendants around me were like, I remember as I was like running out of the crew room to try to get to Dulles, one was like, she's probably going to lose her job over this one. Like they were so just like, they were like, not like, they weren't like ugly behind my back, but like, it was just like the truth. Like they were like, you can do it. You got to try. And then here I go. So I actually got in a cab and went the $150 back to Dulles in a cab because then I wouldn't have to park. Got there, got on the people mover. If you've ever been to Dulles, they have these people movers that look like Star Wars. On the people mover, went at my showtime. Crew scheduling calls. I missed the flight. I didn't make it. They pulled a reserve off the couch, off hot reserve, off airport alert, and worked the flight. The flight went out on time. I immediately started crying. Well, I had been crying. I cried the whole way there in the cab. Called my dad, cried. Still crying. Then the flight had gone. So I went down to the crew room there. My supervisor's office was there. We had, as a new hire on probation, I had 4 supervisors in one room. I wasn't really assigned to one specific one. Went in, talked to the supervisor. Here's the first tip. If you ever find yourself in a situation like this, do not go to your supervisor. Go directly to the union. 100% go to the union. go to the union, call the union. They will tell you in training, oh, you're not protected by the union until you're off probation. That is true to a point, but the union is like your lawyer or like getting counsel before. So maybe you can't be protected or represented by the union, but the union representative can sometimes use their relationships to maybe get you some extra grace or tell you how to phrase it, what to say and not say, still within the truth. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like this where you have done something, hopefully accidentally, that is really wrong, then you need to go and talk to your union rep. Okay. Delta is not unionized. But that's pretty much it. So otherwise, you need to talk to your union rep. So I went to my supervisor's office. And they were very kind and very thoughtful and like, oh, I'm so sorry, here, type out everything that happened and email it to us. So I did. Called crew scheduling. He was like, she's here now. Can we get her back on the schedule? Put me back on reserve. I ended up getting a trip later that afternoon. Got to go to San Francisco, so that was cool. And then I typed up the whole thing, everything that had happened, and I sent it in. I emailed it in, and they said, okay, well, we're going to take this information and we'll think about it, and we're going to come to a decision, and we'll let you know in about a week. So I worked that trip to San Francisco, which was super cool. And then I got to work a trip to Amsterdam, which was really amazing too. I got to go on a canal tour. It was just really, really neat. Got to go to Amsterdam. And then when I came back from Amsterdam and I went to check out as a reserve flight attendant, you have to go check out. So I went to check out, and my supervisor was there to talk to me. And he told me that unfortunately, they appreciated how much I had tried to get to my trip. But unfortunately, because I was a new hire on probation, I was going to be terminated, or I had the option to resign. So I thought that was what was going to happen. So I wasn't actually the first person. I had been on the line about 6 weeks at that point, and I was not the first person from my class to have been terminated already or have left. So before I went down there, when I saw he wanted to talk to me, I remember having heard that they're going to take your wings from you. And so I took my wings off my dress and I put them on my suitcase, and I said to myself that I decided that I was going to lie. If he said, I need your wings back, I was going to say, well, I lost them and I don't have them, because I had worked so hard for those precious wings and they felt so much like mine that the thought that he would like put his hand out and I have those wings in his hand was like the worst thing I could imagine at the time. So I took the wings off my dress and I put them in my suitcase, and I went into the office, and he said, here's a piece of paper if you'd like to resign. And I was like, well, I don't want to resign. I'm not resigning and I don't want to resign. And he was like, oh, well, then I'm going to have to terminate you. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to resign. And so he's like, okay. And he was completely unprepared. He was like, he's like, what's your employee number? And I'm sitting there like bawling in the corner. What's your employee number? Da, da, da. He didn't have the paperwork ready, anything. So finish all that. And he was like, you have a car here, so you're going to drive home? I was like, I have a car here, but I really need you to fly me home. So he flew me home. I got on the plane to Charleston, called my parents. My mom was actually on a missions trip, so she didn't even know anything that had happened. My dad is going to the airport anyways to pick her up. I call him, let him know what happened. He was surprised because this seems like a little honest mistake, but that's how aviation is. Here we go. Get on the plane, get off the plane, cry the whole way home. Flight attendant, super kind to me. I didn't share with her what was going on, but if you've ever been crying on a plane and had a sweet flight attendant, or ever worked as a flight attendant with someone crying on the plane, kind of how that dynamic is. You're handing them tissues and like, you okay, sweetie? That kind of thing. She was super kind to me. Get off the plane. I get my bags. I'm still in my uniform. He didn't ask for the wings back though, y'all. So I didn't have to lie. I'm still stripped of my wings though. They're still in my suitcase. So I'm standing there. I've got my uniform on. And I remember walking towards TSA to leave the airport, and both of my parents standing right outside the TSA, right as close as they could get. And I'm at this long hallway down at the end, and I'm dragging my bag behind me with two hands. And I have my uniform dress on, and I've just been crying for like days, it feels like. And I see my parents at the top, and my mom is crying, and my dad's trying not to cry. And I'm just like, and they're so far away. And I'm just like, ah. And then, they gave me a big hug. I finally got there, but I just will never forget the way they looked standing at the end of that long hallway. Went home that evening. The next day I woke up and I realized that as heartbreaking as what I had been through had been, I had found the thing I was put on this earth to do, which is be a flight attendant. I had found it. No matter what United had stripped of me, dignity wise or whatever, especially in those moments, they had given me the key to the thing that I was put on this earth to do, which is be a flight attendant. So I got up the next morning, I updated my resume, and I started applying. I filled out every application I could. Before, I had only applied with United. I didn't know anything. I started looking. I started going to every mainline's website, finding out who their regional partners were, applying with their regional partners. I filled out all the applications. I started to get interview invitations right away again. I have to take a sip of my drink. I'm so impassioned. Started to get interview invites. I interviewed with Republic. I interviewed with SkyWest. I remember Mesa. I interviewed with most of the regionals at that time. And I also interviewed with Continental Airlines. So in late August, I interviewed with Continental Airlines and again was offered a job or an invitation to training on the spot. Even after I'd been fired, even after I told them why I'd been fired, even after it came up in the interview, even after I had to tell the story of the worst day of my life 3 times that day because of the different different things that you have to go through. I actually ended up in some kind of executive's office with like 3 men in business suits that were obviously not flight attendants. And I told them my story as well. And I just remember they said at the end, they invited me to training in that room. And then one of the executive gentlemen said, just make sure you don't end up going to JFK instead of Newark. Ha ha ha. Thanks. Super funny. But I was glad that he had given me another offer. So just in case you're curious, for my other job, I actually received job offers from everyone that I interviewed with during that span. And I had planned on taking Republic at the time. And then when Continental came along, I went for Continental. So I ended up working for Continental for a couple of years. That's where I met my husband. My husband was a gate agent for Continental in Charleston. So looking back, I think that it's pretty cool that if I'd stayed with United, I would have been in the wrong terminal from my future husband, who was working as a gate agent for Continental. And so we met with me commuting and him working at the ticket counter. He says that I had him at, may I have a jump seat form? So that we met at the counter, and now we've been married over 10 years. After we got married, he left aviation for a little bit, we moved to Memphis. My commute changed. My marriage was new. I'll be honest with y'all, it was really, really struggling and it was about to fall apart. Something had to give. So I ended up resigning from Continental, which is still something that I regret to this day. I wish I could have figured out a way to make them both work, but at the time I felt like I couldn't. So I resigned from Continental Airlines, stayed married, still married. We have 3 kids now. And we've been married, I think I said 10 years. We've been married much longer, like 13 years. I don't know. We got married in 2008. So once I kind of got my feet under me as a new wife and bride, I missed flying again so bad, crying. Remember the crying again. I guess I'm a crier. But I started applying again. This was 2008, 2009. The stock market had crashed. The housing market was crashed. Aviation was crashed. Everything was down, right? So there wasn't a lot of opportunity. I filled out, I think, 3 applications. It was like Air Wisconsin, PSA, and Envoy. I got hired with Envoy, but then they canceled the training class. And then I interviewed with Air Wisconsin, and I interviewed with PSA, and I got hired by PSA. So that's how I ended up at PSA. I worked for them for about 2.5 years. I had the opportunity to be an instructor for them, which is one of the really cool benefits of working at a small airline. You can move up so much more quickly than a big airline. I held a line fast. I was an instructor within a year, or in a year, I was an instructor. And then I got pregnant with my first baby. And after he was born, I decided to stay home with my children. Or with my child at this time. Then I had 2 more really quick. I guess that's what happens when you're like home all the time. So yeah, that's another life lesson. But then I had 3 children, and I started Flight Attendant Career Connection because I still had people reaching out to me asking me, how can I become a flight attendant? So I started Flight Attendant Career Connection, the Facebook group. I wrote a book, started the Facebook group. That was how it started. And then it has grown over the last 8 years into what we have now, almost 100,000 members in the Facebook group. And I've been able to meet and personally help thousands of aspiring flight attendants. As you can tell, I'm passionate about this career, and it's something that's very, very close to my heart. So although in my family right now and in my situation, it's not really an option for me to go back to being flight attendant, I love and am honored that I still get to participate in the career and that I love and that I'm so proud of as a career too, not just for myself, but just as an industry. I just love it. My husband is a ramper for Southwest Airlines right now. So, we're still kind of in aviation, and I sell flight benefits because I'm in the Marry Me Fly for Free club now. So I sell flight benefits. So that's my story. Sometimes when you Google me, it's like, Abby got fired. So, I like to just be honest. It's right. So true. I got fired and I worked for a regional. Those are the 2 things people try to say about me. And, one of them, I guess, is I should kind of be embarrassed, or I could be embarrassed about, but I don't really think that she worked for a regional is necessarily a put down. So that's my story. Thank you for listening. Oh, I forgot something. I forgot my second tip. During the United first interview, the lady, she invited me to the face-to-face. She told me what to expect. Then she said to me, you will do a group activity. All of the applicants will work together to complete a task. My best advice for you is participate, don't dominate, and you'll do great. So if you've ever heard me say that, or if you've ever seen me write that, I try to always give her credit, even though I don't know her name. I always try to give her a little bit of credit because she said that to me and it has stuck with me. And I'm the one that usually dominates. So it definitely, I think I would have probably bossed my way out of a job offer if I hadn't had that advice. But then on the other side, if you're a wallflower, participate and you'll do great. That was my other tip. Sorry, it was supposed to go way back there. Okay. So now we're going to thank you for listening to my story. So that was a lot about me, but hopefully you find it inspiring, maybe even surprising. But that's my story. That's how I ended up at all the different places I ended up. I've been through training, actually 4 times now, but I've been through training 4 times. I love being a flight attendant. I love flight attendant training, and I love helping people become flight attendants. I think that if you have a desire in your heart to be a flight attendant, it was put there for a reason. It's not accidental. And I love helping you get to be on board the airplane so that you can help the people that you're destined to help. So now we're going to move to the next part of our study hall. I know there was some union talk going on in the chat, which is awesome. I think I saw Matt in there posting, who is a current flight attendant. So I know he's got some good information, but SkyWest does not have a union either. They have a group of people who operate as a union, and they have a work rules contract. I believe this is how it's described on their website. And then Delta is not unionized either. Right now they're in the middle of trying to be unionized. Sarah Nelson is on the campaign. They do this about every 18 months, and they've never been able to vote in a union. The positive of that is Delta Airlines makes sure that they create a culture and a community where their employees feel like they don't need union representation. So it's almost like Delta's on their best behavior to help prevent the unionizing of their work group. So that is definitely a positive if you look at it that way. I think everyone else is unionized. JetBlue's working on their first contract. I think FSI just signed their first contract. I believe Omni's unionized. I think everyone else pretty much is in a union, which through the pandemic, we saw the airlines that were unionized or the work groups. It's not even airlines, it's the work groups within the union, within the airlines. The ones that were unionized did have a little bit more protection than some of the other ones, or at least maybe not protection, but they knew what to expect because there was a certain way things had to be followed. Whereas the airlines or the work groups that didn't have union representation, they didn't really know what was going to happen, and they didn't know what was going to happen or how it was going to happen or when it was going to happen. So that's a little bit about the unions. Now we're going to move to the poll results. So this part of study hall is pretty traditional. So where we start right now is usually how study hall goes from here on out. This is usually how study hall goes. Instead of telling my story at the beginning of study hall, I do open the floor for announcements, and we get this is when we get our CGO announcements. I just got back from the interview, and so I want to tell you what happened, or tell you the parts that I feel comfortable sharing. So usually they'll share the process. Sometimes people don't care or don't mind sharing the questions. What they expect. I also like to ask, what did you feel like, especially when they announce a CJO, I say, what do you feel like you did right? That's what I want to know. Like, what do you feel like you did right? Like, what tipped the scale for you? That's something that we go over. So that's usually what happens is a story time. Everyone gets to announce where they are in the process if they want. You don't have to share, of course. Some people keep their cards a little closer to the vest. It's totally fine. And then some people just put it out there. I'm a little more of a put it all out there kind of person. So we get both. And then sometimes people will graduate from training and then come back and then say, okay, guys, now I can share. I'm graduated. I feel much more comfortable sharing with you. Here's what happened. So that's what happens usually first. Then I go into a little bit of a training, depending on what has happened, current events, who's hiring, who's coming up hiring, things like that. Today, we're going to go over the poll results. So I put a poll in the Facebook group asking what we wanted to go over. And I got a lot of votes. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. So you couldn't vote more than once, but we still got the top ones. So we're actually going to go in reverse order. So we're going to talk about the third one that won, then the second one, then the number one poll result will be last. So the third place winner was about commuting. Commuting and pay and sort of like lifestyle stuff. I did a Facebook Live about pay yesterday. It's also on YouTube. So if you go to Abby Unger TV, you can find a tutorial on how to find out how much an airline pays and then calculate the monthly pay for each airline. So you can actually, because every airline has a different pay rate plus a different minimum hourly guarantee, which makes the product, because you're multiplying the product, different. Can you tell I have third and fourth graders? I know, I remember product. The product, which is what you would make when you multiply the two together. So that you can really compare how much each airline would pay you a month. That's on YouTube. Now let's talk about commuting. So I wanted to do that one because this is a big one. Commuting. Let's talk about commuting. What is commuting? It is best to relocate as a flight attendant. It is best for you to relocate to your assigned crew base. It is easiest. It is best for you. It is best for the company. It's absolutely best for the company. And it will just be easier. Now, that's not always possible. Several reasons. One, maybe you have a family that you can't just move. Number two, maybe you have a house that you can't just sell. Number three, maybe the place you're moving to is really friggin' expensive and you just did the math on how much you're going to make, and you're not thinking that you're going to be relocating and renting a condo in Seattle on your $2,200 a month flight attendant pay. So those are reasons people commute. All right. Commuting is okay. it gets easier the more control you have over your schedule, the better you get at learning how to be a flight attendant and work the schedule. It gets easier. So even if you even if you weren't going to relocate forever, it is best if you can figure out a way to have a place to live or a place to stay in your assigned crew base, and then you could also then commute later, and maybe move to a more affordable place and then commute kind of once you get your feet underneath you. SkyWest is not, I believe that this is still the policy that they don't allow commuting for the first year. Relocate is sort of a broad word. I kind of think that when you live somewhere, you have a place to sleep and you know where you're going to sleep. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've like got a library card and everything switched over and you've canceled your church membership at home. Like, it doesn't have to be like that much of a break to have relocated. So what is commuting? Commuting is getting to work, right? Right now, we usually commute in a car. So you get in your car and you drive to the office. Flight attendants commute by airplane. So before you work a trip, you would get on an airplane and you would fly from your town, from your city, to your assigned crew base. So when I commuted out of Charleston, I was based in Houston. So I would fly from Charleston, South Carolina to Houston to start my trips, and then back again. For PSA, I was first based in Knoxville, and then I was based in Charlotte. And I lived in Memphis, and then I lived in Charleston. Well, then I lived in Charlotte, and then I lived in Charleston. So that's how kind of commuting works. You, to fly to your crew base, you can fly on your airline or any other airline for free in general, for free or very, very, very reduced, but your flying space available. So there has to be a seat available. For your airline, you have access to really accurate data as to how many seats are open for a flight. For airlines that you don't work on, you have some general data as to whether it looks good or it looks bad or it looks okay. You don't actually have like the actual numbers. So as you start to learn how to commute, you will usually have to give yourself several tries to get to base. So that's why it can take longer. So you don't want to take the very last flight that would get you there, because if it cancels or if it's full or if the flight before cancels and fills you up, there's all these different ways that it can kind of go sideways. So you want to be very conservative when you commute and leave earlier. Some airlines have what's called a commuter policy, which means you don't get in trouble if you follow these certain parameters and you have enough tries to get to work, but that's all in the contract and that's kind of a different thing. But we hear this commuter policy thing a lot. So I just wanted to kind of address that that's what that is. It's a way to not get in trouble if you try to commute in this certain way. Okay, so that's what commuting is. It's flying on a plane, space available, usually free, to get to your assigned crew base. If you're on reserve, you have to fly in the night before. Once you have a line or you have a set schedule and you know when your trips are, you can control your trip so you have afternoon check-ins. And depending on where you're commuting from, if there's enough options and enough flights, you could fly in the morning and then wait at the airport for 6 or 7 hours until it's time to go to work, which makes for a long day, but still, that's how commuting works. The thing that you need when you commute to make commuting work, especially as a reserve or a new hire, is a crash pad. Now, crash pad is a term that is, it's a slang term where you crash. Meaning like you sleep, like you just crash there, like, hey, can I just crash here? That's where it comes from. It's crash pad. The crash pad is a term that is used. It's a slang term that's used for lots of different things. Okay. It's lots of different things. When someone says, oh, I have a crash pad, there's not one thing that defines. A crash pad could be many different things. For example, they could be renting a room from a person and have a room that they rent, and that's their crash pad because they don't live there. That's their crash pad. They could be in a hotel crash pad. So Hotel Crash Pad Network is a sponsor and a friend of Flight Attendant Career Connection, and they go and they take all the furniture out of a hotel room and put in bunk beds. Crash pads usually have bunk beds, and rent out the bunk beds, and but you still have access to all the hotel amenities, the Hilton and Marriott amenities, the pool, the breakfast, the shuttle, the pretty lobby with the Christmas tree, all of that. So that's pretty cool. The next, another thing that you could do is maybe rent a house with some other people. I did that, and that was my crash pad. I shared a room with another girl in a big house. There was like 12 of us in a house. It was a really big house. Another thing is you could move into a traditional crash pad. A traditional crash pad is a business. So it may not be like a corporation business, but someone either owns a house or has leased an apartment or owns a condo, and they have turned it into a crash pad. So what they've done is they've taken this house. I lived in one of these in Newark. A lady had bought a house in Newark and had filled it with bunk beds and beds. And there were like 36 of us who lived in this house, in this crash pad. So I was up in the attic, and there were no bunk beds up there because the roof slanted. There was just single beds from IKEA. It looked like Madeline's orphanage. So if you've ever read the book Madeline, the little French girl that lives in the French orphanage, that's what it looked like. It was just all these little beds lined up on both sides, 5 on each side, 10 in the room, in the attic with slanted ceiling. That's where I was. Downstairs, there was a mail room, not like get your mail postage, but like men. There was a mail room, and it had 3 bunk beds in it. It was just a regular bedroom with 3 bunk beds in it. That's 6 men. The front living room area had been converted as well. It was kind of like a parlor, like a living room, kind of area, not really a den, but like a living room. It was long, and it had bunk beds in it too. I didn't ever go in there. I don't know how many. I'm going to guess 4 or 5 maybe. And then there was another bedroom that had bunk beds too. And then downstairs we had a basement that was like a den. And we also had access to the kitchen. So that was my crash pad in Newark. That's what most people are talking about or thinking about when they picture a crash pad. It's that kind of living situation. You bring your bag in, you take your bag out. When I was in Houston, I rented a 1-bedroom apartment with a classmate, and we each had a single bed in the bedroom and then a den area. And I also called that a crash pad too, because I technically lived in Charleston, but I had an apartment with just me and her, and we split it. And that was really affordable too, to do it that way. That's how crash pads work. You have to be careful, make sure that you're being careful, that you're in a safe place, things like that. I don't see a ton of scams around crash pads. What I do see is more like it was dirtier than I thought. There was more people than I thought. I didn't feel like it was safe in that sense. Like there's too many people, I don't feel safe. Not like there's a criminal, I don't feel safe. That's generally what you're kind of looking for: cleanliness, organization, things like that. Those are the things to be aware of when you're looking for a crash pad. Now, also, I can't remember. There's one other thing I was going to say. Oh, I want to tell you about hot bunks and cold bunks. This is my favorite. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So, because I think it's a cool story. So when you see a crash pad advertised, or when people are talking about it, you will either hear the term they have cold bunks or they have hot bunks, hot or cold bunks. So a cold bunk means it is your bunk. It is your bed. No one else sleeps in that bed. That is yours. It's a cold bed. Hot bunking means that you are basically, it's more like, I know it sounds weird, but this is what we do in a hotel. You will sleep in whatever bed is open. So they change the sheets, or depending on what your situation is, some crash pads will have you bring your own sheets. So you could either keep your sheets there and just launder them, or keep them in your bag and make up your own bed. So that's what a hot bunk is, though. It means someone else could have slept there before. You don't have one assigned bed. You just sleep in one of the beds that's open. That's called hot bunking. Here's where the term comes from. It's actually an old Navy term from the submarines, because when they make the submarines, there's half as many bunk beds as there are sailors. So one crew works during the day and the other crew sleeps, and then they switch. So when the day crew is going to bed and they get into their bunk, the bed is still warm from the last sailor that left. So it was hot. So that's where the term came from, because they would be hot bunking. Now, when you're in a crash pad, your bed's probably not going to actually still be warm when you get in it from the last person who slept there. But that's what hot bunking is. So when you see the terms cold bed, hot bed, cold bed, or hot bunking, that's what that means. All right. When you go to choose your city, this is my last thing I'm going to say about commuting. You will, if you're going to commute, it's important for you to decide which city, crew-based city, is best for you to be based in. And it's not always the one that is just located the closest to your city. You want the one that has the most access from your city. Okay, that's what we're looking for, access. And not even just access on your airline, just access from your hometown airport. So what you will do is you will go to your hometown airport, you will go to, Fly CHS or, whatever, Pitt, Greenville, airport, or wherever you are. Go to your airport's website and you want to look and see who flies in and out of your airport and write it down, which airlines operate in and out of your airport. And then you also want to see what cities are served directly from your airport. Denver, Dallas, Dallas Love, Dallas Fort Worth, DCA, Seattle, whatever it is. You want to see where your airport serves. Okay. Then you want to make a note of how many flights a day you have to these different cities in total. So if both JetBlue and Spirit and Southwest all fly from your city to Fort Lauderdale 3 times a day, you have 9 flights a day to Fort Lauderdale from your city. And if you get hired by JetBlue, you still have 9 flights a day from your city. Okay, so it doesn't matter what airline you're going to be working for. The data we want to collect is what your access is to that airport. The airport that you have the most access to is probably going to be your best top choice for crew bases. Now, of course, you don't get to just, say where you want to be. They'll assign you based on need, but you also will be putting in transfers and they will ask you to put the bases in order that you would like. So this is how you get to that answer if you're commuting, okay, is which airport you have the most access to. So for example, when I was based with PSA, started with PSA, they based me in Knoxville, Tennessee. I lived in Memphis. My first choice was Charlotte. If you know anything about geography, Knoxville, Tennessee and Memphis, Tennessee are in the same state. Charlotte is in North Carolina. Charlotte is farther away from Memphis than Knoxville was. Okay, so Knoxville was the closest base to where I lived, but it was 6 hours away in the car, so it was too far to drive, and there were no direct flights from Memphis to Knoxville. So to commute, I had a 2-leg commute. I had to commute from Memphis to Charlotte and then back to Knoxville. So that obviously was not ideal. So I immediately put my transfer in for Charlotte. So even though it was farther away, I had more access to Charlotte than I did to Knoxville. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. So even if you're, Chicago's closer, but I have 11 million flights to Charlotte, maybe Charlotte's a better option for you. Okay. So that is commuting. That's my commuting tips. Okay. The next one that we talked about, or the next poll, was about confidence, which I was super excited to see this one because I actually have a whole class on confidence. It's called the confidence class that I've taught for years. And I've actually taught it outside of aviation at like conferences because learning how to feel more confident is always something that people should be wanting to be interested in, but I feel like it doesn't come up until after you've sort of blown your first interview. Before that, it's like, how do I interview well? And then it's like, okay, now that I know what I want to say, how do I actually do it? By feeling confident. So confidence was the second one that was on there, the second winner. This is why confidence is important. And confidence is important to you and it's important to your airline, both. It's not just about you feeling confident so that you can interview. It's important to you and it's important to the airline. It's important to you because if you feel confident, then you will feel better during your interview and you will be able to perform better in your interview and obviously communicate what you're trying to say so that they can really see the authentic you that's not shrouded by fear and despair, desperation, right? That's what we're trying to avoid. But it's also important to the airline that you appear confident in your interview because flight attendants have got to possess the ability to stir up confidence inside them when they are facing something that is scary to them. Because in the event of an emergency, they have to know that you will keep your wits about you, you will be able to communicate, and you will appear confident, which inspires trust and creates a situation where you are the authority figure. So in an emergency, you appearing confident in the face of fear and danger will allow your passengers to trust and obey you, which will save lives. That's why it is important to the airline that you appear confident. So it's more than just about being able to answer your interview questions. You have to learn how to feel confident when you don't think, you have to learn how to appear confident and stir up confidence in the face of a scary situation. Okay. So I have 3 tips for you, 3 tools for you. In the confidence class, I go into great detail. The class is like an hour and a half. I'm going to quickly go over these right now, but the confidence class is available. It's part of the, if you're a member of the hub, you have access to it. When you become a member of the hub, you'll have access to it. And it's also sold on its own by itself. But the confidence class goes into this in more detail. Here's the 3 things you can do. One is when you are getting ready for your interview, we're going to go from the interview point of view, not necessarily the emergency at this point. When you're getting ready for your interview and you're starting to feel and you want to grow your confidence, remember, confidence is a feeling. It is just a feeling, like feeling happy or feeling sad. I can feel confident. I want to go into this interview and feel confident. So how do you make yourself feel a certain way? One of the biggest ways you can do that is the way that you talk to yourself. So if you talk to yourself in a certain way, you can make yourself feel like crap, or you can make yourself feel like a badass. We're going for badass confidence. Okay. So you want to be making sure that you're paying attention to what you say, what you're allowing to roll around in your head. Like, this is so dumb. I'm never going to do this. I can't pull this off. I've never been good at speaking. I've never been good at public speaking. I hate the way I look on video. I wish I could be in the face-to-face. I wish they could see me in person. If I could see me in person, then I would feel confident. I don't feel confident on video. All that, stop. No more. Instead, I want you to think about the things you have accomplished, the things that you've done in the past that were hard or you didn't think you could do that you did do. Completed your degree, raised your children from the beginning to the end successfully. I filled out the application, created a resume that got you the freaking interview. You have done some things. Think about the things you've accomplished. Another thing is to remember that everyone's on an even playing field. No one really loves video at first. No one, we've gotten much better at it throughout the pandemic, but video is awkward for everyone, especially the first couple of times. So all the other candidates who are doing video interviews, unless they have failed dozens of times and gotten all that practice in, they're probably at a similar place as you. Okay. So that's the first one, talk it up. The next one is stand up. You don't have to stand up right now. That's just the title of the second one. And it's about power posing. In the confidence class, I go over the science. I'm not going to go over the science. Super cool though, about power posing. Power posing is basically standing up like Superman or Wonder Woman. So feet hip width apart, hands on hips, you're making yourself big. It creates a chemical reaction that increases your testosterone, which we know it's like, that's the male hormone that makes us like, we're like mean and we're like badass and we can like beat people up and like, we're not afraid of nothing. And it lowers your cortisol, which is your body's reaction to stress. So you have less of a hormone that's making you feel stressed and more of a hormone that's making you feel powerful. So, and you do this chemical reaction in your body just by using, body language basically on yourself. So this is great now that we have video interviews, because you can literally power pose, stand up, plant your feet, hands on hips, shoulders back, chest out. What is tits up? It's what that show. Chin up. Excuse me, mom. I think she's might be watching. Chin up, and you're just like posing. You're standing there. Give it a good 30 seconds. And you can do it right before your video interview. You know, it used to be in the face-to-face, I'm like, find the bathroom and do it, or just do it before you go. But now you can literally do it like right before you get on your video interview. So power posing. Next and last, take control. Here's the thing, confidence is a muscle. The more that you work at feeling confident, the stronger you will get at being able to stir up the gifts that you have in you and make yourself feel more confident. So there's some things that you can do to just make yourself feel more confident. You can apply to more airlines. This is a big one. There are right now, last time I counted, there were 29 airlines accepting applications in the United States. I don't know how many applications you filled out. It may feel like it's been 900, but I bet you haven't applied to all of them. Go and at least check them out. Maybe you decide not to apply to them. Maybe you don't qualify for some of them because you're too tall or you don't live in the right area of the country, but take control of your career by learning more about every airline and applying to the airlines that you can, doing the video interviews. Don't chicken out on the video interview and just say, never mind, I just decided I'm not going to do it. It's too scary. Don't chicken out, just do it, because you have the same result if you do it and fail or if you don't do it. It's the same result. The only difference is when you do it and you fail, you've now practiced and you've gotten better and you've gotten closer. Okay. And then read a book. Read a book that is helpful. If you go to Amazon, and type in flight attendant, there are books. You can read a book that is just like a collection of essays. You could read Heather Poole's book. You can read Elliot Hester's book. There's books. You'd read Abby Hunker's book, but that's a guide to how to become a flight attendant. There's other books. Ebony Christina's book, I think, is still up there. You can read guides to how to become a flight attendant. Get yourself a book. Also, the Flight Attendant Career Connection Interview Workbook Bundle. It has a workbook. It's a PDF, instant download. You can purchase it. Nuts. Yes. Nuts is a Southwest specific book. They actually gave it to my husband when he got hired. It's a big deal. Read Nuts, read books about aviation. You can also read 48 Days of the Work You Love, or other career books, or other just personal development books about confidence, books about, all sorts of different things, personal development books. All right. So read a book, get a book, read a book. That's kind of a small investment, and it will help you feel more confident because you will learn some things and you will feel like you're investing and taking control of what is next for you. Okay. And then the third one for take control is dream a little bit. Dream a little bit. Think about how cool it's going to be when you're a flight attendant. Make your bucket list of places you want to go to when you get your flight benefits. Look at apartments at different base cities. Look at different things in different places. Just do some dreaming. Believe that you're going to be a flight attendant one day, and then start to imagine how that's going to be and start to Google the different things that you might get to do as a flight attendant, and just dream a little bit so that you're not just stuck and feeling bad. And, if you filled out all your applications and you're in between books, this is a great thing to do to kind of fill the time so that you feel like you're still moving forward. Okay. That was the last one for confidence. Now we're moving on to face-to-face tips. This was the number one winner, face-to-face tips. First, we're going to talk about what to wear. Airlines are traditional, classic, professional. Traditional, classic, professional. Okay. So for a man, that in general means nice leather shoes that are shined and a suit with a tie. Okay. Now on a video interview, you could get away with not wearing the tie and wearing the button-down shirt and the jacket, or not wearing the jacket and wearing the tie and the button-down shirt. Video makes it a little bit different. You don't have to go and buy a bazillion-dollar suit to do a video interview. You can also get away with things more from the thrift store that maybe don't fit perfectly on a video interview too, because you're just seeing from here up, right? You can't see a whole lot of me on this video, but if I had a jacket on, maybe the arms were too long, or maybe it was too big, or maybe I couldn't button it, you wouldn't be able to tell, right? So I would wear a suit, wear a tie, go to the department store and ask someone to show you how to tie a tie. If you don't know how, go on YouTube, learn how to tie a tie. If you don't know how, you can do this. Get your outfit. For women, Oh, let's talk about color. Let's talk about colors in general. General advice is research the color of the company, and you can try to reflect those colors as long as you feel comfortable. That does not mean you're wearing a yellow suit to a Spirit interview. Doesn't even mean that you're wearing a yellow shirt. Maybe you are. You'll see some people in yellow shirts, yellow scarves, yellow dresses with like a, a blazer over it. Like there's ways to do it, but you don't have to just like only wear that color, especially if you have limited resources and you have your one suit and you've got your funeral and wedding suit and your tie. That's fine. You don't have to go and like get an orange something or red something. You can wear what you have. These questions as to should I dress like the airline or colors, this is like next level. People who are going out and purchasing something anyways, then you can start to look at the airline's colors and kind of reflect it. Looking at their uniforms can also help you reflect the style that they are too. Okay. Now let's talk about women. You also want to wear a suit. So pantsuit or skirt suit, skirts are a little more traditional, but pants are totally fine. If you wear a skirt, you have to wear pantyhose. I will die on this hill. You have got to wear pantyhose. I know somebody told you they got hired, they weren't wearing pantyhose. Great. Wear pantyhose. Pantyhose are part of the uniform. Just put the pantyhose on. Wear pantyhose, closed-toe shoes. They don't have to be like uniform compliant or anything. Shoes you can walk in, at least a 1/2 inch heel, hopefully a little bit higher, not over 3 inches. It doesn't have to be a certain color. It just has to match. Closed-toed is preferable. Closed back is preferable. If you have a sling back with a closed toe, that's okay. Wear your pantyhose. Skirt, jacket. Let's talk about shirts. Okay. You don't have to wear a white button down unless it's required unless it's requested by the airline. You want to find a blouse in a color that looks pretty on you. Don't wear an orange or a yellow if you're a winter like me. See my winter colors, my berry color. So you don't have to wear an orange or a yellow or anything like that. You want to wear a blouse in a color that looks pretty on you. It can have a collar. It doesn't have to have a collar. Make sure it's not too low cut. That's all. Period. That's all. Don't wear a white button down shirt if it doesn't look good on you and it gapes open and you can see your brassiere and all of the things. Okay. Wear a blouse in a color that looks pretty on you. Yes, you can wear a dress. You can't wear anything sleeveless. If your dress is sleeveless, you have to put on a jacket or a cardigan. If your dress has sleeves, you don't have to put on a jacket or a cardigan. Make sure it is a dress. It is a business dress like the lawyers wear on TV and those fancy shows on USA, not what you would wear to a party or cocktail party. And if you wear a dress, guess what else you have to wear? Pantyhose. Okay. Do you want to wear a scarf? I don't know. Do you? You don't have to wear a scarf. This one, every time someone asks in the Facebook group, it gets so freaking heated about the scarf. I am team scarf. I will officially say that I am team scarf. But here's the thing about the scarf. If you put on a scarf and you say, there she is here to slay, then wear the scarf. If you put on a scarf and you're like, why do I have a pet? It's like I have a pet on my shoulder and it catches my eye and it tickles my face and I feel like I'm wearing a costume and imposter syndrome. It's crazy. Don't wear the scarf. Don't wear a scarf. Don't. Put on some pearls or nothing. Well, I meant accessory wise. Please do not go naked to your interview, but you can just do no necklace. That's fine. That's totally fine. Earrings, size of a quarter or smaller. Makeup for women, yes, especially on video. Go to the MAC counter, go to the Clinique counter, Estee Lauder counter, say I'm doing a video interview. I don't know what to do. They will help you. Go to Sephora or Ulta. Someone will help you get ready for a tradition. Just say I'm doing a job interview. I need to be classically professional. Please help me. I don't know what to do. You need lipstick and mascara. A little bit of blush is a really great idea for video. Okay. Men, you can wear makeup. Most airline uniform guidelines have moved in the direction of allowing some concealer, some translucent powder, and some bronzer. So go for it, especially on video. I mean, you can if I didn't have this bronzer on, y'all don't even know what my face would be shaped like. It's just on video, do a little bronzer. All right. That's all. That's what you're going to wear. Glass door. Preparing for your face-to-face. How do I use Glassdoor? Use Glassdoor to prepare for an interview. You do not use Glassdoor to decide if an airline is a good company or not. Everyone on there is just freaking complaining. Do not go and read the reviews. Everyone, write this in your notes. Do not read the reviews on Glassdoor. Don't. All right. You want to learn about an airline? Go to their website. Go to their website or phone a friend, ask in a Facebook group from someone who has a face or something like that. Okay. So, but Glassdoor is fantastic for preparing for the interview. You're going to put in the airline's name, American Airlines flight attendant interview. It's going to come up. You're going to have a whole bunch of interview questions. The first thing you do before you start reading is you want to go over to where it's sorted. It will be defaulted to popular. It will sort it by the most popular. Usually the most popular ones have been voted up. They're old because they've been there a long time. They've got the most thumbs up. You want to change that to recent, popular to recent. Then it will give you the most recent. Because of the pandemic, some are still a year old. That's okay. That's where we're starting. Some are more recent. Okay. And so that's how, and then you start looking at the Glassdoor interview. Some of them are super helpful. Some of them just say, all the questions are here on Glassdoor. And you're like, great, where, Susan, where? But most of them will have a couple questions. You can, you'll want to have a notebook. Every person will give like one question or like a half a question. And as you start to take notes, all the pieces will come together in a beautiful puzzle. And you'll start to just get different pieces from different people. And you will have a pretty good picture of what the airline, the face-to-face looks like, or what it's looked like in the past. Airlines don't change what they're looking for. So even if it's not exactly the same question, it's the same thing. Like they want to know the same thing. They're super focused on teamwork. Maybe the question changes, but it's always a teamwork question. Okay. That's how we use Glassdoor. You want to get the Flight Attendant Career Connection Interview Workbook Bundle. Again, I wrote it. It's amazing, but it really is a really good resource because it's a PDF, has over 50 interview questions. It has 4 training modules that mirror the workbook. And I just added as another bonus because I took a different poll and everyone was interested in STAR format or really struggling with it. So there's a whole STAR format class in there too. Okay. So that, Kimmy, if you have the link, you could pop it in the chat. But, otherwise I talk about it in the Facebook group a lot. Also, if you're a member of the hub or when you become a member of the hub, you also have access to the workbook. So if you haven't purchased it yet and you decide to become a member of the hub, you'll still have access to it as part of the hub too. I want to say that. Now we're going to practice for the face-to-face. Here's how you practice. Study hall. Of course I said that. Study hall is my favorite way to practice for a face-to-face. There's other people on study hall. They're listening to you and judging you as you answer your questions, but with no negative effects. So they're not judging you and making a decision. They're really not judging you either, not like in an ugly way, but it makes you a little bit more nervous to have other people in front of you when you're practicing your interview answers. And that's fantastic because if you can create the feelings that you're going to feel, much more higher stakes, then you can practice better, right? That's why football teams like scrimmage instead of just practice throwing the ball all the time. It's like, okay, now let's practice, trying to score touchdowns. That's kind of what it is. So study hall, I also offer private interview coaching. That's another way to get closer to just to get your interview questions, know exactly what you want to say to any interview question that's thrown your way and just feel really good about it. On your own, you want to say your whole answer out loud. Once you've decided, you've kind of thought about it and you've decided it at least once, you just want to start and just say the interview answer out loud to yourself because it forces you to choose every single word. We tend to say, oh, I'll just tell that story about the time that the bank got robbed. Instead of one time when I was working for Bank of America, I was working at the teller line and making yourself really go through the whole thing to the end. As a result, all of it is how you're going to practice. So at least once you need to say the whole thing so that you make your brain choose every single word that you would like to say. We're not going to memorize it. We're just practicing. The next thing is when you're creating a tell me what you think answer, which is why do you want to be a flight attendant? Why do you want to work for this airline? Tell me about yourself. I find it helpful to use bullet points sort of mentally and on paper if you're a visual, and just say like, tell me about yourself. I'm going to say like introduction, career starting with Bank of America, and then why this is the right time for me to be a flight attendant. And I sort of bullet pointed in my head. And I know that as long as I can remember those 3 things and hit those 3 things, I'm pretty sure that the words I say around them are going to be what I want to say, as opposed to having to memorize like a monologue. Okay. All right. That's my last face-to-face tip. Now we are going to do some Q&A. Gosh, the time is going fast. Okay, let's do a little bit of Q&A. Okay, let me see. I have to see who has their hand raised. I don't know if I can see who has their hand raised. Can I? Kimmy, I don't know if I can see that. Okay, I see some person, so I'm going to click on you. So Leela, I don't know how to say your name. I'm sorry. Lejla. Come on, unmute yourself. Tell me how you say your name, please. Lejla. I think that's what it says. Yes. There we go. You can unmute. I don't know who's unmuted now, though. Okay. All right. Whoever's unmuted, you can ask me a question. Okay, give her a second. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. I'm not seeing a whole lot of hands raised. I only saw the one. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. What kind of questions? Oh, how do I lift my hand? I don't know. Okay, Lena. Lena. Yes, ma'am. What's your question?
Okay, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember hearing in one of your tutorials on YouTube that when asked, why do you want to leave your current employer, that you shouldn't say anything negative about the current employer. Yeah. But if the reason I want to leave is because their safety regulations are basically non-existent, would that be a good reason to mention during the interview, or should I just kind of...
So here's the thing. Becoming a flight attendant and wanting to work as a flight attendant is sort of apart from your current work situation. So more than likely, you didn't just say, oh, I don't like this job, it's not safe, so now I want to be a flight attendant instead. That's not, they're usually kind of like exclusive from each other, right? So this bad working situation, yes, I want to leave. Ooh, I think I do want to be a flight attendant. There, even if this work situation was awesome, you'd still probably want to be a flight attendant. They're not, they're kind of, they're like exclusive from each other. So to answer your question specifically though, my question to you, or my thought, if you're telling me that you know your company has safety violations and is not safe, I want to know what you've done about it. Have you filed an OSHA report? Have you called? Have you talked to your supervisor? Like, have you done anything about it? Because as a flight attendant, if you see something wrong or you see something unsafe, no matter whose responsibility it is, a ramper, a caterer, customer service, we are all a team to keep aviation safe and in the air and off the ground. So that's kind of why I think leaving the safety part of it out, although it sounds very noble on the surface, I'm wondering what you've done to help change that. And I'm not saying that like, I think you should go to work tomorrow and just blow the thing up. I'm not saying that. This is not like me giving you career advice in that sense. We're only talking about it from an interview point of view, because I don't know your situation. I think that even if you can't say anything, like, it's always great when you say, I love my job, or I really like where I work. Even if you can't say it that big, finding something positive to say is important. They're asking this question to find out what kind of employee you are. That's why they're not actually gathering data as to why people leave jobs to become flight attendants. They want to find out what kind of employee you are. So if you can say, you know, I feel like in my current position, I've learned a lot, especially about safety, what to do, what not to do. And, you know, I'm looking for a new opportunity where I can work in a safety sensitive situation and provide an environment where people feel safe. And I know as a flight attendant, I'll be able to do that. You could say something like that, or you could say something positive about what you've enjoyed at your current job, besides the safety thing, and just sort of avoid it. Also, because I'm kind of like thinking, if you're in a place that's dangerous, I wouldn't wait to leave till I got a flight attendant job. Right. So it either feels like it's not really that bad, or maybe you should do something. Again, I'm not giving you actual advice as to what to do tomorrow at work. I'm just saying from an interview point of view, which is all very theoretical, right? It's just very theoretical. Okay. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Okay. Lori Nelson. Can you unmute?
Am I on?
Yeah. Oh, who's on? I don't know who's on. Oh, yes, Lori.
Miss Lori?
Yes, ma'am. Go for it.
Hey, how's it going today?
Hi.
I talked to you last time. I had my panel interview yesterday. It went well,
Oh,
so
yes, ma'am.
my
Yes.
fingers crossed. I had a question. There was a question in a different interview that I thought maybe you could help me with.
Okay.
Is there such a thing as an unreasonable customer demand?
Great.
And
What do you think?
you know, well, if it's safety related, yeah, there's unreasonable.
Are they not allowed to make a demand or a request? Or is
No,
it?
I mean,
Here's how
especially-
I answer it. I'll just go ahead and cut to the chase. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you the answer and then you can go with it. So here's how we're going to look at it. We're going to look at it from the point of view that customers don't know all the things that we know. They don't know what we're allowed to do, what we can do, what we cannot do. So their request to them does not feel unreasonable. They think that they're making a reasonable request. We may know that we're not actually able to accommodate that request, but that doesn't mean that their request is unreasonable. Because the question is, can they make a request that's unreasonable? It's not, is there anything that a customer could request that you could not do? That's not the question. The question is really about unreasonable requests. You know, my children make unreasonable requests all the time, but I'm not like, that is unreasonable. And I also don't say yes to everything. I just say, you know, unfortunately, you've already had 3 lollipops today. We're going to have spaghetti first, and then you can have 3 more. Right. So their request is unreasonable. And it's the same thing with passengers. So you're just going to, you know, so to answer this question, the way I would answer it in an interview is, you know, I don't think that a customer could make an unreasonable request because anything they request is reasonable to them. Now, it's up to me to decide whether or not that's something that I'm able to fulfill or if I need to offer an alternative, because there are some times that we are asked as flight attendants to do things that we're not really able to do, either because it's safety or just because of the supplies that we have. But I always try to make sure that they don't feel like I think their request is unreasonable. And also I always try to offer an alternative whenever I can.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That's
Yep.
good. All right. Good.
And
And thanks for being here too. It's good to see you.
you bet. Thanks.
Bye. Okay. So Leja, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Tell me how to spell your name. I'm not going to even, say your name. I'm not even going to try again. Lejla. I'm so bad at
Hi,
this.
Abby. Yes, it's
Hi.
Layla. How are you?
It's Layla.
Yes.
That's easy. I'm sorry. Your
No,
mom
you're fine.
got crazy. Just kidding. Just teasing. Okay, Layla. Okay, so what's your question?
Okay, so I have a virtual group interview with American Airlines on Tuesday, and I'm so excited because this was like I'm happy with myself of like how far I've come, because in the past I would have this goal of wanting to be a flight attendant, but I never do anything about it. I wouldn't get past the resume. And now this year I've applied to so many airlines. I've done the resume. I've had one CJO already, but I had to decline that one. And now I'm just keep going forward, but I've never gotten that far where I made it to like the group interview, because the other airline was a regional and they just did a recorded video, a virtual interview. So
Okay.
it's not like I was interacting with people face to face on a live session. So I've never had experience with doing a group interview. So I am a little bit nervous, but I'm trying to stay confident and positive and just
Good.
taking all the information that you're giving us here today and doing my research and stuff. But yeah, I just want to know like any tips for that. I don't know what to expect really.
Yes. So at the American Airlines face-to-face, you can expect to have a face-to-face interview. So sometimes when you're answering questions, and you can also expect a group interview, a group activity also as well. So similar to what I was talking about before for the group activity, participate, don't dominate, you'll do great. Remember, in a group activity, they'll give you a task. Let's just say it's setting up the bar cart or setting up the beverage cart. They will give you a task to do. Remember that the goal is not to complete the task correctly. The goal is to work as a member of a team. So do not focus on setting up the cart correctly or what you think is correct. They're not judging that. They're judging the way you talk with the other people, whether or not you're participating, whether or not you are involved in the process. Okay. So sometimes people think like, no, that can't be right. No. There is no right or wrong as far as what the task is. That's not the point. Okay. So that's one thing about the interview. Also, they will be noticing you the whole time. So don't ever turn it off. Make sure the way you walk, the way you sit, the way that you interact with the other candidates is always like you're a working flight attendant. Always like you're trying to make people feel welcome. As they speak to you, warm, welcome, hospitality are kind of the words that you're thinking about. Be prepared to answer, why do you want to work for American Airlines? What excites you about relocating? What is challenging about relocating? Questions like that. And then also a couple star format questions. Be ready with some star format stories, ones that can kind of be molded into different questions, and enjoy the day. Enjoy the day. Okay. Enjoy the day. Make sure you eat before you go. Make sure you eat and that you're hydrated so that you can be fully yourself. And congratulations. This is so exciting. Yeah.
So-
Also, don't forget that you already got a CJO. Who cares how you freaking got it? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Don't be qualifying that. Like, oh, but it was no, like lots of people got thanks, but no thanks after they did the video interview that you did, that you nailed and got a job offer from. So don't make that smaller than it
Okay.
is. Okay.
Thank you for that
Right.
advice. Yeah, if I did it before, I can do it again. And
That's right.
if
You
the group-
already convinced an airline that you have what it takes to be a flight attendant. And that's all you have to do again is show them that you have what it takes. That's it. Same thing. Right.
Okay.
Good. Thank you for being here today. Good. Let's do two more. I'm sorry, guys. We're just running out of time. Leslie, I see you next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just want to say thank you. First of all, I applied to Frontier. I watched a lot of your YouTube videos, and I feel like that helped me get the
Good.
face-to-face interview next week.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. Mostly, I wrote down all the tips that you talked about confidence. But I'm really nervous because English is not my first language.
Mhm.
And when I get nervous, I tend to forget all the words in English.
Yes, that's not
So
unusual,
any
I
tips
understand.
that you could give me besides the ones you gave, that would be
Yeah.
very appreciative.
Yes, actually, this is part of the confidence class. So I do have some tips because there's three major confidence busters: weight, age, and accent. Those are the major three things. When I do coaching, every single time someone says, I'm so glad I get to talk with you because I have to share with you, I think I'm too heavy, I think I'm too old, or I think I can't speak English well enough. One of the three every single time. Okay. So these are the three major confidence busters. So you have one, it's accent. Here's the thing. This is partly about the way that you feel and calming yourself down. When we get nervous, I say we, like I only speak English. You have such an amazing extra skill that I will never have. I can never put on a resume that I'm a native speaker of any language besides English. Even if I started studying Spanish or Portuguese or Italian today and I dedicated my life to it, I will never, ever be a native speaker. That would be impossible for me. If you speak English as your second language, then you have a first language that you speak at a native level, and more than likely the airlines will be super excited that you bring that skill to the table. So that's something to remember. That being said, we have to interview in English. So as you prepare, there's a couple different things. I find that people sometimes who speak English as their second language also live with people who speak their first language. And so at home, everyone's speaking Spanish or everyone's speaking Portuguese. So I encourage people as they get ready for the interview to say, hey, guess what, guys? We're speaking English at home now. And you're just kind of incorporating yourself, immersing yourself into English everywhere. Of course, you're speaking English outside the home, but you're just saying, guess what, guys, we're speaking English at home just to help me feel, just to help me practice and just be more surrounded, because that's more practice and it just keeps you in the English instead of switching back and forth. That's one tip that I have for you. Another thing is just remembering how powerful and valuable that skill of the second language is. It's actually your first language, is a really big skill. It's a very, very valuable thing that you bring to the table. Here's the thing. Airlines know that you don't get a native speaker without an accent for the most part. Pretty much everyone who speaks one language natively has an accent because they learned English later on. So that just comes with the territory. They're not surprised with that. So that's another thing to remember. Even if an airline like Frontier that doesn't have speaker positions, they have passengers on their plane who speak lots of different languages. So if you speak a different language, you still can provide that extra level of customer service. That's another thing. Also, when you're practicing, if you're getting stuck on your answers, you're just getting stuck and you don't know what you want to say, and you're having trouble finding the English word, write your answer out in your first language and then translate it. So you can be in more of a state of flow, because you're not trying to, because I know I've had people explain it to me that this is how it is. You hear the question, it goes in your brain in English, you have to translate it to Spanish, then you have to understand it, then you answer it in Spanish, and then you have to translate it back to English, and then you have to communicate it out. It's like a 4-part process. So you don't, so when you're practicing to stay in flow, you could write your answer in Spanish or whatever your first language is. You could write it out in that language so that you can be in flow and not be trying to translate and then translate it, or translate the bullet points or something like that. That can also be helpful. Okay. So good luck. Good luck. Good luck. And have you already had a phone interview with them? A phone or a video?
A video interview, yes.
Yeah. So they already know what you sound like. So why, they already know what you sound like, know what you look like. They already know all that. So it's not like, oh, well, we didn't know you had an accent. They already know. They already know.
And your workbook helps a lot too. I've been doing it and practicing, so I'm really excited.
Good. Well, I'm excited for you. Congratulations. Okay. Moving on. One more. And then I'll have to, Kimmy, I think, is collecting all the questions. If you want to put your questions in the chat, then I can address them soon, but later. Babette, you're up next.
Okay, I just have a question. I got an email from Alaska Air yesterday. It's called an on-demand interview.
Yeah.
Is that a video interview, or is that someone I'm going to be like?
Great question.
Live.
This is a really good question. Okay, so everyone listen so we can define what the different types of interviews are. Great question. If it is on demand, that means you can do it whenever you want. It doesn't have to be scheduled. It is on demand. You can do it before you go to work. You do it in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, on your lunch break. It's on demand whenever you want. That also means because it's on demand and it doesn't have to be scheduled, we know that there won't be someone on the other end.
Okay.
Because you're not setting up a video interview. Okay. So the way that an on-demand video interview works is when you're ready, when you're feeling great, when you're ready to do it, you will log on and the software will come up and it will guide you through the process. But what you can expect is questions to come on the screen. You will have a certain amount of time to think about the question. There'll be a countdown timer. They'll tell you everything. They'll tell you how much time you have. There'll be a countdown timer. Then it will record you. Or if you're ready before that, you can press record. It lets you control it. You will answer your questions. Again, you will have a limited amount of time to answer your questions with a countdown on the screen. You'll answer your question. And then when you're done, you're done. Don't have to take up all the time. When you're done, you're done. If it takes all the time, that's fine too. And then at the end, you could say stop, and then you move on to the next question. Some airlines will allow you to re-record your answers. They will tell you that in the intro of the video interview. You usually don't know that beforehand necessarily, but it will tell you if you can re-record. In general, be prepared to not be able to re-record and just be ready to perform straight away when the question comes up. So that's how the on-demand video works. And then it goes off to be reviewed. Depending on, well, this is with Alaska. So the next step with Alaska would be a face-to-face. And some airlines will, like we had Layla say she had gotten, Layla say that she had gotten a CJO just off of the video interview. SkyWest does it that way. I think Republic does it that way still too. That basically it's just the video on demand video interview and then a CJO. But with Alaska, your next step would be a face-to-face.
Okay, being that I'm not comfortable, I've done some, where do you look at on the screen so you don't look crazy? Like, do I look at
Well, if you don't want to look crazy, then you pick one spot. Okay, which is actually the right question. Okay, so you will read that you look into the camera. Okay, that's yes, look into the camera. It used to be before everyone had Zoom and everyone did everything on video, you know, like the first iPads, like the camera would be like over here. And so you would be like looking like this, you know, you'd be looking at the screen, but it would look like you were like this because the camera's like way over here, right? And you look like off. For the most part, computers and phones are designed for video chat, so they've made it much more natural. So I have not looked at the camera at all the entire time, which you maybe can sort of tell. I've been looking straight at myself. If I look at the camera, it looks like this. Maybe it does look a little bit more like I'm looking straight into your soul. But here's the thing, there's no way I can continue to do this the entire time, which means I'm going to drop my eyes down and then I'm going to pop them right back up when I remember like this. And then they're going to drop down while I'm talking. And then I'm going to pop them right back up because I just remembered I have to look into the camera. And then I'm going to look crazy. Okay. So just look at yourself. That's fine. That's fine. Just look at yourself. If you don't like the way yourself looks, then you can take a you know, and I don't mean like if you don't like the way you look, I mean like if on camera you're like, dang, do I really look like that? That's surprising. You can take, because that happens to all of us the first time, you can take a sticky note, draw a little smiley face on it, a little you got this girl, a little airplane. Just stick it, don't stick it over the camera. Stick it under the camera, over your face. And then that can be helpful too. Okay. Thank you. Good. You're welcome. Great question. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next part of the study hall. This is where we do, so normally, again, we don't have 500 people or I don't think there's 500, but we don't have a bunch of people on, this many people on during study hall. So everyone has time to get their questions answered. We have a good, 45 minutes for everyone to get their questions answered in study hall that's not public. But that's what we have for now. Now let's move on to the next part of study hall, which is our interview question practice. Okay, I want everyone to participate. Whether or not you're going to answer out loud, I don't care about that, but I want everyone to participate. I want everyone to practice the interview question that I give you. I want you to take some notes. I want you to think about it. Even if you're not going to do it, I want you to do it. I want you to practice, do the practice part. So we are going to take 5 minutes. Okay, I'll tell you when we start in a minute, but you're gonna have 5 minutes. I'm gonna turn my video off. You can turn your video off if you want. You don't have to. We're gonna have 5 minutes to work on the interview question. Then when we come back, I will take volunteers who wants to give their answer, who wants to present their answer to the group, in front of the group, and then I will give you feedback. It's laser coaching is what it's called a lot of times. So I will be giving you feedback. I'll tell you what I like that you did, what you could do differently. All right. You have, for your interview question, I want you to keep your answer in 1 minute. Sometimes airlines do this. Usually you have more than 1 minute, honestly, but for sake of time, and because it does happen occasionally, we're going to do 1 minute. So you're going to have a 1 minute timer. When you practice, make sure your answer is 1 minute or less. The question is, tell me one characteristic that you possess that you feel like is important for a flight attendant to have. One characteristic that you possess that is important for a flight attendant to have, and why? All right, so don't just say pretty and be done with it. Okay, so tell me and why, and in under 1 minute. So we're at 12:44 right now, or at 44 after, so you have 5 minutes. So we're going to come back at 49. Just turned over. You only have 4 minutes now. All right, go.
Hello.
All right, we're back. That was quick. We also usually have a little bit more time to think during study hall too, but we're just gonna go for it. All right, we're back. The question was, one characteristic that you possess that is important for a flight attendant to have. All right, I see hands up. I'm thinking that I don't know if they're new, so I'm just gonna start and call on you. If you have your hand up and you don't want your hand up, you can look and take it down now. Otherwise, here we go. All right, Henry, you're up. Let me open my clock. You got 1 minute to unmute your, not 1 minute to unmute yourself, but go ahead and unmute yourself. And you have 1 minute to answer the question.
Okay, the characteristic that I have is that I am a team player, and I've worked as a certified nursing assistant for 45 years. I am bilingual, team player, and with my nursing assistant position, that has helped me to deal with people of different backgrounds, different origins. And let me see my notes again here. Okay, well, my medical experience and bilingual, that would come in very handy with non-English speaking persons. So all that together, I think that would make me a great flight attendant. Thank you.
All right, good. So you're at 40 seconds. So perfect. Here's the thing. You took your why do I want to be a flight attendant and just stuck team player at the beginning. So here's what it's going to sound like. It's going to sound more like this. You're going to take all that same information, and maybe if you had more than 4 minutes, I bet you could have like fluffed it a little more. But what we want to do is take what we've already decided and we've already practiced, like why I want to be a flight attendant, which was awesome. You hit the right things: teamwork, safety, medical background, bilingual. You hit everything. So if I had asked you, tell me in 1 minute why you want to be a flight attendant or why you think you'd be a great flight attendant, you nailed it. Okay. But the question was a little bit different. So for this one, you can take what you've already practiced and what's already in your head, and you want to just kind of twist it a little bit more than you did to make it fit. So it would sound like this. I feel like one characteristic that I possess that would make me an excellent flight attendant is that I am a team player. I have learned how to be a very strong communicator and team player working for 45 years in the medical field. It is imperative that we work together as a team to save lives. And I feel like that's something that I'm very, very good at. Also, I'm bilingual. So there have been several times when I've had teammates come to me and say, can you please help me translate? Can you please help me understand what's going on? Or can you please communicate this to another patient? And that has, again, brought comfort to patients as well as saved lives. And so I feel like the fact that I'm bilingual and the fact that I've been working as a member of a team in the medical field for 45 years has really made me a very, very strong team player. And I know that that's something that's important to being a flight attendant. Okay.
Thank you.
So we just took the same stuff, but every time we said bilingual, it's like, why does that make me a good team player? Why does working in the medical field, why does that make me a good team player? Right. And we could have done it for anything. You could have done compassion. You could have done kindness. Like there's so many different things, but that's how, and hopefully you got to go first. So you get the biggest, now everyone's like, oh shoot. Okay. And now they're all going to tweak it. But that, again, I hope that you really hear me say too, that your why do I want to be a flight attendant or why would I be a good flight attendant answer was fantastic. Very good job.
Yeah.
You hit all of the things that you want to hit and your time was great. Good job. Good job. Thank you for going
Can I
first.
just add one thing?
What?
Can I just say one thing? I just had
Sure.
an interview with Southwest Airlines, and I think I did great. And the interviewer told me all my answers were great, but yet the next week I got a TB&T
What
email.
level were you at? What level were you at?
It was the phone interview.
The phone
It was
interview?
the phone interview, yes.
When you think back, was there anything that you wish that you had answered differently?
Yeah, maybe, because one of the questions was, what do you see in a flight attendant that attracted you to the flight attendant position? And,
Okay, what'd you say?
Well, again, I said all my years of experience in the medical field, and that I was trained in first aid, CPR, bilingual, team player, adapted. I can adapt to change. Many times at the hospital, I had to stay over because someone didn't show up, like on a snow day. People don't show up, so you have to stay there till someone else relieves you. And I mean, I said a lot of all these things that I'm telling you, and I don't know.
Yeah, I
didn't
think
get it.
that for this one, again, you didn't quite satisfy the question, because why do I want to be a flight attendant? You don't want to be a flight attendant, or you're not drawn to the flight attendant position because you know CPR and you've stayed overnight to work for other people, right? You want to be a flight attendant because dedicated your life to helping people. You feel like your skills would be really valuable in saving lives and creating a safe and comfortable environment on the airplane. You feel like you've learned everything you can in the medical field and you're looking for a new adventure. These are the reasons why you're drawn to the flight attendant position, right?
Okay.
So I
Right.
think that, I'm not saying that this is what did it or didn't do it in the interview, because obviously I can't do that. But
Right.
I think that for you, when you interview, make sure you hear the question and you answer the question.
Okay.
Not, okay? So take what you have practiced and make it fit the question. Also, one more tip for you. Every time you say bilingual, I want you to list your languages, because it's not super valuable to just speak 2 languages.
Okay, say
What do you
English and
speak?
Spanish.
Yeah, thank you.
English and
Yeah,
Spanish.
exactly. So, also the fact that I'm bilingual, speaking English and Spanish every single time, bilingual, speaking English and Spanish. That's the new phrase, speaking English and Spanish. Okay, because
Okay.
then they know, okay, because not, there's bazillion million languages, but great.
You're right.
Don't give
Okay.
up. Don't give up. Don't give up. I'm sorry it
I'm
went
not.
that way. It's also very
Yeah.
frustrating, especially since it sounds like the feedback was good in the interview. I mean, I wish that instead it had been like, oh, really? Are you, like, can you clarify that for me? Where you feel leaving like, oh, that, nobody wants to be sort of like bamboozled.
Yeah.
But don't
Well,
give up. Keep going.
okay.
There's lots of
Okay.
efficiency.
Right. I have an application with American and United, and I
Good.
recently got an email from United saying that they're still considering me,
Good.
just to
Good.
hold on, because they got so many applications. And then
Yeah.
with American, I got an email recently also that I'm still in the process. So
Good.
hopefully.
Good.
I'll
Good.
keep going.
In the meantime, you could apply to any of the other 29 airlines that are accepting applications too.
Okay.
And keep
Okay.
practicing and keep interviewing. Especially, it sounds like you've had a long career where you're probably ready to like bounce. So like go
Yeah.
ahead, even if it's not your forever airline, keep
Right.
applying and keep interviewing and get your feet off the ground, like get in the sky, get your flight benefits, move on to the next chapter. So good, but
Okay.
thank you. Thank you for going
Okay.
first too. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Kendra, I see you next. Kendra.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Kendra. All right,
Thank
tell
you.
me one characteristic you possess that is important for a flight attendant to have and why.
One characteristic that I possess to be a flight attendant is my integrity. And integrity is always doing the right thing. And integrity for me is not just doing the right thing when it's easy, and especially doing the right thing when no one's looking. And it's very important to me that I maintain that integrity daily, especially in these times. My experience as a flight attendant has shown me, we'll take, some of you may have heard of a thing called COVID. It's been very difficult to get people to keep their masks on. So some people are easier to approach than others. It's not my job to just approach the people who are going to be nice to me about it. I have to approach everyone and be diplomatic and say, would you please keep your mask on? One small little, what might seem like a small little thing could have a butterfly effect. I don't maintain my integrity and a mask is off and I say, okay, nobody's looking, it's okay. And then that person leaves the plane and gives somebody COVID, and on and on and on, domino effect. So what I do is remember that my integrity, no matter whether people are watching or not, has a butterfly effect for everyone, my coworkers, the population, my family. So it's imperative that I maintain that, because I'm a flight attendant and I'm a safety professional. And it's at the end of the day, we all just want to get home to our families or our dog or our plant or whatever we have that we hold dear. And that's mine, integrity.
Okay, good. So that was 2 minutes long. It was 1 minute and 55 seconds.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, so that's okay. I'm keeping track though, so because it's easy to go over. Okay, integrity, perfect choice. The way that you define integrity, perfect. Integrity is important for a flight attendant. Yes. I think you should take the antidote, so like the story and the COVID part out. That will save you time and it will keep it from starting to get sort of like narrative instead of just answering the question. So it would sound more like this. I believe that integrity is a characteristic I possess that's important for a flight attendant to have. Integrity is always doing the right thing, always doing what is right, no matter who's looking or no matter what the situation is. Integrity is doing what's right, whether it's easy or it's not easy. As a flight attendant, I've learned that integrity is so important for a flight attendant to have because every action and every decision we make can have a butterfly effect. And we don't know where a choice that we make that is outside of integrity, what that could affect, what that could lead to down the line in the operation or in the world. And as a flight attendant, I am very proud of the fact that I do have a high level of integrity. And I feel like that's something that has served me really well throughout my career. Okay, so we're just gonna shrink it down to only like just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing, right? And, right now we do have COVID. But even if we don't have COVID, your answer would have been fantastic 2 years ago and fantastic in 2 years from now, because integrity is all about challenging someone without a badge, making sure that that you double check your door, that you double check your galley, making sure that everything is stowed, one more compliance check, one more safety check, right? That's integrity. It's more than just the masks. Now, if you are asked a specific question, I'm not saying don't talk about masks or anything like that. And the way that you described your your challenge within yourself to make sure that you're, even in the hard times, doing what's right to keep the people that you're responsible for safe. If you are asked a question about, about masks, or tell me about a time that you had to, deal with a difficult customer, tell me about a time that you had to give someone bad news or something like that, you could use a star format story with the situations that you've encountered with the masks. But for this question, I would just keep it straight to integrity and what that looks like in a very big way, right?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Very good job. Good. Integrity. All right, Melissa, you're up.
Hi, Abby. Okay, what I have is, with my work as a practicing dental hygienist for nearly 20 years, I have the ability to work well under pressure, as many of my patients presented fearful, anxious, and downright upset. Nobody likes going to the dentist. With that said, I have the ability to make my patients feel calm, safe, and secure, which I believe is very important to be a great flight attendant, and that's what I'm going to make.
Good. Okay, so you were I can't do the math, so you were under a minute.
Under a minute.
Yeah, you were at 40 seconds or so, maybe. Yeah. So perfect. Very good job. All right. Fantastic. All of the words that you chose were great. I love the way that you delivered it, short and sweet. I could tell you were reading it, so that's okay. That's okay. We just did it. But, I could tell that you were reading it. So of course, moving forward, as you're practicing it, we want to get where we can just say it without reading it. But that. I love what you said. I love the way that you did it. Your tone, I think because you were reading it, it came off as a little bit like, almost like you were hosting like a children's show.
Pediatrics. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Okay.
I can make people feel good at the dentist, brushy. But that's okay. Part of that's your personality and part of it's nerves and part of it's trying to read it without saying like you're reading it. So you're almost performing it. So I think I just wanted to kind of point that out. Now, depending on the airline, children's show host may be completely appropriate. And then sometimes we'll tone it down. Okay. So I'm not saying like change who you are or anything like that, but I just want to kind of point that out. And that's the only feedback I have is the delivery was a little kind of plucky. But other than that, that was fantastic. Very good job. All right,
Thank you.
Sarah, you're up. Sarah L.
Okay, thank you. Well, one characteristic I believe I have that would help me be a good flight attendant is that I have the ability to understand what just about anybody is trying to say. And I have developed this ability in my 27 years of a community college as a community college instructor of English as a second language. I've taught English to adult immigrant students, and many times I've been in class and someone has raised their hand, and I can understand heavily accented English, and I can kind of catch the message and respond to that. I also am a fluent speaker of Japanese and Spanish, so I believe that would be very beneficial as a flight attendant and also help me understand the passengers. And in addition to my ability to understand just about anyone, I believe that I also bring the desire to understand and help them. And I think that these things would be good characteristics for me as a flight attendant.
Very good job. So I forgot to look at the timer, so I don't know exactly how long it was, but that felt like it was like a minute. So good. Now that was fantastic. That was so good. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. What is one word that you would use to define, understand what anyone is trying to say? What do we call that? Communicating.
Okay.
So if I would say, what one characteristic do you possess that's important to have for a flight attendant, I would encourage you to start with the word and then define it. So I believe that the characteristic I possess is my ability to communicate with anyone. Over my years at the community college, I have developed the skill to understand what anyone is trying to say and then give your little examples, things like that. And then you could say at the end and say, and I'm not only a good communicator, I'm actually passionate about communicating and making sure that people are able to communicate with each other. That's something that I'm passionate about. I'm fluent in English and Japanese and Spanish, So that's kind of how you would take it and change it a little bit. But I think that's an awesome answer. You did a very good job incorporating the word into and then supporting it with how you've learned it. And I think it is very unique and very special and very noble and honorable that you have a desire to help people be able to communicate in places that they can't. Because I think, probably most of us, if you've traveled at all, you've found yourself in a place where you can't communicate. And when you're looking for that like kind person that could possibly help you or at least try to interpret your sign language, that I think, especially in a flight attendant interview, when you're being interviewed by a flight attendant, like she's been there, he's been there, right? So they'll definitely get that. So I love that. How sweet. I love that. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Good. You're welcome. All right. Now we've got, well, he turned his camera off, but Brian Ramos, are you here? Coming at us live from an
Yes.
live from an aircraft in what is that? A ramper?
Yes.
A ramper
No,
vest?
yes, I'm a ramper in ATL, and I'm currently on the CRJ connection aircraft. So
Well,
me at
he
work
went
today.
location of study hall. All right. So go ahead, Brian. What's one characteristic you possess?
I believe I have many characteristics that would make me a great flight attendant. I am very oriented, organized, as well as I have great communication skills, and I love working with people. I am a people's person, and I get told about that by a lot of people at my work. And I would make a great team player, and I'm very great on working in a timely manner in a fast-paced area.
Okay, good. How do you feel you are at following directions?
I'm great at following directions.
Are you? So what were your directions for this one?
Tell me what one characteristic that would make you but I said multiple.
Yes. So I'm just teasing you because, I'm married to a rampy, so I feel like I can give you a little bit more of a hard time. But because I know y'all like that, kind of like that kind of stuff. But here's the thing. So pick one. Any of them that you said are fantastic. All right. I think the one that you really want to say is that you enjoy working with people. But that's the one you really want to say, but you felt like that one maybe wasn't like good enough, or like, it's not like integrity or communication or something like that. But that's okay, because what we're going to do in our interview is tell the truth. So for you, it's going to say something like, one characteristic that I possess is my passion for providing excellent customer service. I really enjoy working with people. I currently work on the ramp, and so I serve my teammates, as well as I have the opportunity to interact with the passengers in the jetway sometimes, getting their strollers, helping them with their gate checked bags. And that's my favorite part of the day. I really, really enjoy working with people. Maybe if they have a question, answering their question. And I feel like that's a characteristic that I have that would allow me to be a really good flight attendant. Right?
Sounds great.
Just do it. Don't censor yourself out and try to like name all the different, keywords from your resume. Just tell the truth. People person. And so here's the thing too, so on the ramp, I'm familiar with it, but did you notice how I didn't let the interviewer think I'm not already in these people's face? Like, I already talked to them. I'm in the jetway. I get their stroller. I open it up. Right? That's what I want you, as you're getting ready for your interviews, I want you to be thinking about the times that you do take care of customers. So tell me about a time you gave great customer service. Tell them about the time that mom was standing there with the baby in her arms, and you opened her stroller and you took her diaper bag and you locked the stroller wheel and she put her baby in there.
I gave a different one.
What?
Sorry to cut you
well,
off.
I mean, you don't have to use that one, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you see what I mean? Like, I don't want you to say like, oh, I'm not, I don't want them to walk away thinking like, oh, he never sees passengers or something like that. Like, you have lots of times to interact with customers. Okay. So
I work at the ticket counter, so sometimes.
Oh, so are you cross-trained?
So I got cursed out. Yeah, I'm cross-trained. They cursed me out so many times about missing their
but
flight.
we're not going to tell them about that. We're not going to tell them about cursing out. We're just going to say they were very upset.
Yeah. Well, I'm able to
upset.
diffuse
They
it.
were very upset. They were very upset. I could tell by the way in their word choice that they were very upset. Cussing me out is a slang that we're not going to break their Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank
you, Brian. I appreciate you popping on and giving us a little bit of a future view of what our offices are going to look like, hopefully one day soon in the future. Be safe. Talk to you later. Bye. All right. Next we have Brian B. Brian B is up next.
Hi guys. I feel one characteristic a flight attendant needs to possess is punctuality, because if a flight attendant is late for duty, it has a bottleneck effect and likely will make the customer late. I am always early just in case something at the last minute goes wrong, and that will give me extra time to get there. Punctuality is also important because the plane does not wait for you.
Good. Okay. Good job. So punctuality, that's a great one. Very true. When you answer the question, I need you to twist it a little bit. So instead of saying, I think punctuality is a good characteristic for a flight attendant to possess, personalize it back to yourself. I believe that one characteristic I have that is important for a flight attendant to have is my ability to be punctual.
Okay.
Or do you see how you just sort of twisted a little bit so that instead of just saying flight attendants should be punctual, say I am punctual and that's why I'll be a good flight attendant. That's good. Actually, the plane would wait for you if you're a flight attendant because they can't board without you.
True.
But the bottleneck thing is an excellent visual and a very, very good description. So good job. Very good job. And I think punctuality is a great one. Good. We're going to do one more, Leslie. And then we're going to move on to the next part of our day. Leslie, you're up. Are you there? You can unmute, Leslie. Okay. You can type it in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm going to skip. Leah. Okay, Leah. Great.
Characteristic that I possess to become a flight attendant. I care about safety. I work at a hospital as a surgical assistant. Safety is my #1 priority at work. I ensure my patients' safety while I providing service as a surgical tech. I have experience in multiple emergency situations, such as power going out during procedure or giving a CPR on a patient. And I work in an environment that I have to give very clear, accurate, detailed instruction every day. I believe this is very important skills to transfer well to flight attendant.
Okay, good, good. Hearing about safety, being safety focused, definitely a good characteristic. I feel like you're supporting kind of examples. Lights going out and doing CPR are not necessarily safety focused. It's more like if your characteristic was, I'm really good under pressure, which, you know, or I am able to respond well during emergencies. So if that was your characteristic, I'm able to respond well during emergencies. I have been working as a surgical tech, you know, emergencies, CPR, things like that, that would work. Or you could keep safety. I'm safety focused. Safety is very important to me, following policies and procedures. You never know what's going to happen at the hospital. And it's important that we always keep safety at the forefront of our mind because, you know, of whatever, right? So you couldn't use those same kind of examples. I wouldn't, not like you can't, but they didn't match as perfectly as they could have. I kind of think for you, it's always very telling to me as to what the word and then the story that people pick. And usually the supporting documents are more of the truth than the word that they thought was right, that they say at the beginning. So I would encourage you to switch it to one characteristic I possess is I'm able to respond well during emergencies, or I'm able to respond to emergencies quickly and quickly, period. Quickly and calmly, something like that. You know, as a surgical tech, I've had all these things happen. I would maybe go in that direction. But, you know, your first answer is not wrong, obviously. But I think what comes from your heart is more your emergency response. So good. Very good job. Very good job. Good, good, good. All right. And that wraps up that part. So if you didn't get to say your answer, if you want to put it in the chat, you can, if you want to type it out. But even if you didn't get the feedback, I hope that you were able to listen to other people's feedback and learn and tweak your answer, make it a little bit even better than it was before. And also, even if you don't get to say it and don't get the feedback, the fact that you took the time today to actually force yourself to practice an interview question moved you closer to your goal and made you better at interviewing. Your interview skills have increased because you invested that time into an interview question. Okay. So that's how study hall goes. That's how it is every time, give or take. That's the structure. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Now I'm going to talk about the hub. I'm going to tell you how you can come to more study halls, basically. So how can you get in? How can you do study halls? Study hall is you may have read this in one of the emails that I sent you, but I started study hall last year at the beginning of the pandemic because there were so many people who were hurting, people getting sent home from trainings closing down, job offers being rescinded, people in aviation getting furlough letters, getting laid off, not knowing what they're going to do. There was so much, I mean, we all know it, but in my industry, aviation, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of unknown. There was a lot of heartache. And nobody was hiring at the time. No one was accepting applications. So my regular way of helping people was not the way I was helping people at that time. And I'll never forget that I had talked with a gentleman on the phone. He wanted to be a flight attendant. I had actually talked with him maybe like 2 weeks before everything went crazy. And I remember he sent me a text message because we had been kind of like texting as aspiring flight attendant. And he said, oh, wow, what are you going to do now? I guess you're going to have to pivot your business model or start a new business. Or I guess he was basically like asking me like, hey, what you going to do next now that this business is done? And I just remember like feeling this like righteous indignation from this like man who's trying to like mansplain me out of my business, first of all, because I didn't ask him. Second of all, I was like, I just got mad. And I wrote him back and I was like, oh, I'm not making any changes. The people that I serve need me now more than they have ever needed me. There's no way I would be leaving. It just had never crossed my mind that I would just like shut it down and like go and like do something different. I mean, like, this is what I do. I help aspiring flight attendants reach their goal and become flight attendants. I help people see their dreams come true, literally, which is really cool. And I was not going to stop that. So I started thinking about, what am I going to do? I had another coach friend, actually Kimmy, who's on here now. She was doing something where she was getting people together virtually. And I was like, I want to get people together virtually. So I came up with study hall, and we started doing study hall, and we started meeting. And I think we met every week at first. It was like a lot. And we just started practicing, and we were like, aviation's coming back at some point, and we're going to be ready when it does. We're going to keep working. We're going to keep moving towards our goals. We're not going to lose hope, and we're not going to lose faith, and we're going to keep going. And aviation came back faster than we thought, much faster than we thought. And so we were ready, group of study hall. And so it continued, and it has now turned into a whole membership program with some other resources. But still, the backbone of what the FAC Hub is about is study hall and being able to twice a month set aside time, whether you're live or you're watching the replay, to move closer to your goals. Also, you have access to me without having to book a coaching session or pay for a coaching session. You have access to me and the other candidates and what they're saying. I'm sure listening to the other people's answers, you were like, oh, that was a good one. And you're like making a note, which is cool. All right, guys, that's it. Whew, that was a long morning. Thank you for spending it with me. Again, I feel zapped. I hope everyone else feels zapped and no one feels zapped, and that everyone is feeling good about what's going on. So the Hub portal, we also have access, yes, to the workbook. Yes. So with the Hub, you get the study hall and all of those things. And then all the things I've done, confidence class, focus on star format class. There's a foundations class in there, and the FACC interview workbook bundle, which has 4 trainings that go with the bundle. The bundle is the workbook is a PDF, so you instantly get it. You can use it on your computer, or you can print it out, or you can easily just send it to Staples and go and pick it up, and they'll print it, or they'll mail it to your house, however you want to do it. So it's a really easy file that you can use however, but it is included with the workbook, with the Hub membership too. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everyone, but thank you everyone for being so brave, especially the ones who asked questions and said their answers and went first. Henry, thank you. All right, y'all have an awesome afternoon, and I can't wait to see who is in the next study hall. I can't wait to connect with you in the next study hall. I hope that you're all there. All right, talk to you later. Bye.